guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm so glad you stopped by today because today I'm going to be doing another art challenge. Now there's a challenge going around that a lot of people like to do. It's the redraw your old artwork, but I don't really draw on my channel. I do sewing projects and stuff like that. So I'm going to be doing a remake of my very first plushie. And I still actually own this. I made this when I was 10 years old, so please don't make fun of me. You're welcome to, but be nice. But this is Nessie. He is a Loch Ness monster, and he's basically a noodle with fins on him. I made him when I was 10 out of scrap fabric, and I used a sewing machine, I believe. And then he's got little buttons for eyes that I hot glued fabric to, and stuff like that. But I'm going to be remaking him using the skills that I've gained throughout the years to make him the way 10-year-old me would have wanted him. So he's going to be larger because now I can get more fabric, and back then I couldn't. And I'm going to even try to make his mouth open so I can make teeth and stuff like that and just change him up. Anyways, let's get started. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is go over the pattern that I'm going to use to make this sea creature. So I wanted to make this a lot larger than the previous one, so I drew out a pretty large pattern, and right here is actually going to be the sides of the sea creature. And if you notice, I got the mouth nice and open. It's a very simple shape. I didn't need to do anything super complicated. It's just kind of like a V shape. And then you move down and you have the girth of the body where you're going to end up connecting some fins, and then the very end is going to be the tail. So this is the sides of the body, and then of course you're going to need other pieces. So you're going to need some fins for the very front, and then I wanted to do something similar to the sails that are running down the back of the original sea creature, so I drew these out to use on the new sea creature. And then of course you're going to need a belly piece. So basically how I made this pattern piece was I folded a long strip of paper in half, and then I used the original body piece to kind of trace around it. That way it kind of mimics the same shape. And then for the end of the tail, to continue the belly piece, basically I'm using the same pattern that's on the end of the original body piece. And then for the inside part of the mouth, I used the original shape of the head, and I used those measurements to make this diamond piece. This is going to be the top and bottom jaw on the inside. And then I drew out a simple pattern to make a tongue to go in the mouth. And then lastly, I want to give our sea creature some teeth, so I drew out a little simple triangle to use for that. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to work on is going to be the sails that are going to run down the back of our sea creature. So basically what I did was I took our paper pattern and I traced it onto some fabric. I flipped that pattern over and then I traced it again. And now I need to fold this fabric in half and pin it together, and we're going to sew along the lines. And then after I'm done sewing this, I'm going to cut off the extra fabric, flip this right side out, and now I want to add a little bit more detail to this. So I'm going to use my sewing machine and I'm going to make some line works in it. Now this is basically the same technique that I used to make the original sea creature's sails. So we're basically doing the same thing to make them, except I'm using different material. And then once we're done making those sails, we're going to add them to the body piece. So basically I'm taking the two pieces for our main body, and then I'm going to sandwich the fins in between the two on the very top of the body, and then I'm going to sew those together. Once you're done with that, it's going to look something like this, and then you're going to want to sew on the pattern for the tail. Now the reason these two pieces are separated is because of the shape of the fabric I had. I could not cut them out together. So if you get a larger piece of fabric, you don't have to do this step. You can leave this on when you're cutting out the fabric. And you're basically going to be doing the same thing to the belly piece. You're going to have it a different type of fabric, of course. If you want, you can have it the same, but I want the belly piece to be nice and flat and a lighter color. So I'm going to take my belly piece and the bottom half of the tail, and I'm going to sew those together. And then that's going to look something like this. Now we want to add the belly piece to the two sides of the body. So basically we're going to line these up. So I'm going to lay these out, and basically you're going to start sewing from the tip of the chin, and you're going to keep going until you get to that point where you want to connect the front fins. Then you're going to leave a nice gap, and you're going to keep going down the rest of the body until you get to the very end of the tail. After you're done with this side, you're going to flip it over and do the same thing to the other side. Now we're going to sew together the fins so we can add those to the body. So basically that one pattern I used to make a bottom half of the fin and a top half of the fin. The top of the fin is going to be fur, and the bottom half is just going to be the lighter blue. So I'm going to sandwich these two pieces together, so all the way around, leaving an opening at the base of the fin, and then after we're done sewing, we're going to flip this right side out, stuff it, and then we can sew it to our body. Now, one thing about the fins, when I was sewing them, I realized that I liked how they looked going backwards. So basically I drew the pattern going a certain way with the body, and once I was done sewing, they kind of shaped a little bit differently and they looked better going the other direction. So I'm just going to put them on backwards, which is now going to be the correct way. Also, I realized it was easier to sew them on if I had not flipped them out yet, so I'm going to sew them on first and then I'm going to flip the whole body right side out and stuff it. Okay, so I got both of the fins on the front of the body and we are ready to flip this right side out and see how it looks. Now this piece actually took a lot more stuffing than I originally thought it would, but I guess I was thinking it was going to be a lot smaller. Anyways, I got this stuffed and now we're going to work on the inside part of the mouth. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to make all the teeth for the inside of the mouth. So basically what I have right here is 2 long strips of fabric pinned together, and then I drew out my pattern multiple times on this. I'm not sure if I'm going to use all of these teeth. I do know I want quite a bit of them, but I'm going to just make some extra just to be safe. So basically what we're doing is we're going to be sewing down 2 out of the 3 lines on the triangle. You need to make sure that one side is open, that way you can flip it right side out and stuff it. So I'm going to get the sewing done for all of the teeth, and once I'm done I'm going to cut them apart and cut off the extra fabric. Then we can flip them right side out and lightly stuff them. This part's actually really simple, it's just kind of time consuming. Okay, once all your teeth are done, you're going to move on to making the other parts of the inside of the mouth. Now I'm using a red fabric, but you're welcome to use like a pink or something, that way it's not so bright. So now I'm going to start on the sewing for the tongue. I have 2 pieces of fabric pinned together and I'm just going to sew along the line that I drew. Once I'm done with this, I'm going to flip it right side out, and I'm actually going to use my sewing machine and I'm going to go right down the middle. After that, I'm going to stuff both sides of the tongue. After you're done with the tongue, you're going to need to add this to the diamond piece of fabric. So basically you're going to take your scissors and you're going to make a slit going right down the middle of the diamond. And then you're going to put the base of the tongue into this, and then you're going to fold it over and then just sew along this, connecting everything together. Now one thing I'm going to do to make the sewing for this a lot simpler is I'm going to add the teeth onto this before I connect this to the body. So basically I'm going to pin the teeth onto this, I'm going to sew them on, and then once all the teeth are sewn onto the little diamond piece of fabric, you're going to put this inside the mouth of the sea creature and you're going to sew the lip of the sea creature's mouth all the way around this. And that's basically how I made the mouth for the sea creature. I actually think the big teeth are kind of cute on this, but if you wanted to, you could go a lot smaller if you wanted to get like a lot of daggery-like teeth or something. Anyways, now we're going to move on to adding the rest of the detail to the face. So we're going to add the eyes and different things like that. Now before I did this, I took my trimmer and I trimmed up the fur on the face, that way it was kind of shorter and it was easier to work with. Now for the eyes, I wanted to do them very similar to the original, which were basically just black buttons with a little bit of fabric glued on the top to make the eyelid. So I'm going to be using a larger button since I'm making a larger sea creature, and then I have these little squares of felt. I'm going to be gluing the buttons to the felt. You're welcome to sew it, but I wanted to make sure that they would stay on a lot better, so I'm using E6000 glue. And then once my glue has dried, I'm going to take my needle and thread and I'm going to be sewing the corners of our square together. Basically, I'm bunching it up on both sides of the button. Doing this creates a little bit of an eyelid on both sides of the button. And then once you're done with that, we're going to sew them onto the face. And then once I get my eyes in place, I want to add a little bit more detail with some strips of felt, and then I'm just going to kind of shape the face a little bit by running my needle and thread through it to kind of thin it out. And then once I was done with this, I'm pretty much calling this piece good. If you wanted to, you could probably add some ears or horns or even nostrils to it, but I think it looks really nice the way it is, and it kind of stays with the same style that the original one was, just a lot more detail added to it. Okay guys, and that's how I remade my very first plushie. Now the original I will probably keep till I die or till it falls apart. Whichever one of us goes first, the other one is going to be very sad about it. But the new one I'm going to have in my Etsy shop, so if you guys are interested in buying him, go ahead and check the links down below for that. Anyways, I really hope I can do another version of this using ArtDolls, because I do have pictures of the original ArtDoll that I've ever made, but I do not have the original currently because it broke. I didn't sell it or anything like that. It broke when I was moving a long time ago. So I'm gonna have to find those pictures and hopefully we can try to remake that, and I think it'd be really fun. Anyways, I really hope you enjoyed today's video. If so, leave me a like, subscribe, do all that fun stuff, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!